Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's not Tuesday, is it? It's Thursday. I'm usually here on a Tuesday. It's not Tuesday. It's definitely Thursday today. Very confused about the days. I hope you're all well. It's not bit. I usually complain about the weather, don't I? If it was yesterday, I would complain about the weather because yesterday was horrible. It just rained all day. Today's not quite so bad, so I can't do too much complaining. My name's Rosie. I'm going to be doing something crafty with you today, as usual. I try and make all my craft sessions accessible to all people. I really love this idea that I'm going to try and change people's minds that think they're not creative, and I'm going to sort of try and find their creative side. I think everyone's got it in them. Everyone's got the artist in them. Today's a little bit different. This is just something I saw. I've been trying it out for my own means, my own business means. And I had a little go and I just loved it. I thought it was really fun. And I thought there was loads of different ways we can apply this session. So essentially what we're doing is folding and cutting paper. That's what we're doing today. Super easy. I love collage. I love journaling. I love sort of mark making and trying out lots of different layers of art and craft and that sort of thing. And then I found online, there's loads of different ways that you can kind of fold paper to make into books. So I thought I'd have a go, and it's really, really fun. And not only can you sort of make your own art book, but you can also use it on pieces of art that you've got lying around. So one of the things that I found really fun is this is a very, very useful way of minimizing. Now, I'm not saying children's art is waste at all, but if you do have small children, they often bring a lot of artwork home with them from nursery or school. And you want to keep it all, don't you? You want to keep it all, but there's so much of it. Some of it isn't amazing, but you can't throw it away because if they notice, then that's the end of days. So actually what I ended up doing was sort of merging this craft that we're going to do today with my daughter and sort of using her artwork to turn into a book, which she can then get involved with, which is really, really fun. So there's loads of different ways of doing this. So I'm hoping that this will just be a sort of experimenting session, and you guys can go away and have a go at it and also explore different options because there's so many different ways of doing this. And I just think it's really, really fun. So essentially what we're doing is we're folding up bits of paper that have been painted on or drawn on, and then we're going to turn them into a little book, little sketchbook. And the great thing about this is it can be any old madness, you know, like this is scrap paper. One side of this is scrap paper where it was sort of the background when I was printing, but then when you fold it up and cut it into bits, it kind of looks beautiful. And then what we can do if we want is we can add to it if we so wish. But also you'll see on this side, you can do it with sort of old paintings that your kids have done that you don't want to get rid of. So there's loads of different ways of doing this. We're going to explore a few different options here. So we've got this one. I've also ended up sort of turning it into a thing that we can actually make into a comic. So this is something that I've done digitally, but we can do with pens, where we sort of plot out the paper and then it becomes its own little book where it's got its own little illustrations in it. And all you need is one piece of paper. So we're going to try it with two different sizes. We're going to try with A3 and A4. Now, I think in the description I said that you needed an A3 piece of paper because that's how I practiced it to begin with. But since sort of sending in the information about today, I've been beavering away because I've been so excited about doing this. I found a way of doing it with A4 as well. So if you don't have A3 paper, because that's quite big and some people don't have access to it, we can do it with your standard A4 as well. I'm pretty sure there's ways you can do it with any size paper. But either way, it's super, super fun. We're going to explore how we might put it together, what we might do on it, and also just folding up. So this one is Ramona's. She's written on it, you might be able to see, art book, happy birthday, Ramona. Now, the reason she's written that is because I did an art party for my daughter, and one of the things they did was just sort of painting nonsense on a bit of paper, and we used that nonsense to create this beautiful book where you can see all the elements, and it's just, you know, scribbles and stuff like that, but when we sort of put them into sort of different sections, it suddenly becomes really beautiful, and we can work with that and we can add to it. So that's the idea today. We're going to do it ourselves, but it's also something you can do with young kids. You can do it at any age. I have tons of fun doing it, and I'm 36. So we're going to try loads of different things today. I've got so many. It's so exciting. Anyway, right, let's move all these. Let's move all of my books out of the way, and let's have a go at making some ourselves. So I'm trying to decide. I've still not decided yet which way around to do this, because I was like, do I sort of make some marks on a bit of paper, we'll do it together, and then we do the fun bit of folding and cutting, or do we do the folding and cutting first and then do the mark making? I think I'm going to go with the first option, because it will build up the excitement. It'll mean that you'll have to watch the whole thing, right? So I've got a few different options of my kids' drawings, which we can fold up later. But in the meantime, I think we'll have a go at making our own. So the first thing that I want to show you is something that we're not going to do today, but it's just an option. And actually what I am going to do is I'm just going to see if my camera is maybe a bit blurry. I'm just going to clean it and see if it sort of helps, because it's quite, that's better, isn't it? I think I just had a bit of a smudged screen there. So there's a few different ways we can do this, but one of the things I wanted to show you, because it's just something that I've been doing, is a really nice way of sort of filling up space is by using paint and a roller. So I've got this roller here. This is a lino printing roller, and you can buy these super cheaply online. And if you just stick any old paint in a tray and roller it on, you get this lovely effect. And you can do it with loads of different colours. You can use stamps, you can use pens. So I just thought I'd show you that to begin with, just if you're wondering a really easy way to sort of fill space with colour, then this is one of them. And then I've sort of added patterns to them. And you can see I've done this with a few different colours. Now these ones I've just pre-done so that we can fold these up later. We're not going to do any paint rolling today, because that's not really what the session's about. We could do that another time, couldn't we? But I just thought I'd point that out, just so you know that that's an option. Really, we just want to go to town with filling up space. So we'll make our own to begin with. We'll figure out a couple of different ways of doing it. So I'm going to get an A3 piece of paper here, and we're going to fill it. So I've got marker pens, I've got pencils, I've got highlighters, whatever you like. You just want to fill the space. Now, one of the things we need to consider with these books is which sides we use. So I'm going to show you a few different options. One option is that we just fill one side with colour. And what we can do is, so I think I've done it with this one, is the way that it's been folded is in such a way that you never get to see the back side of the paper. So all of the plain side that we've not covered is on the other side, and we don't see it because we tape it all down. So that's one option, so you don't need to cover both sides. The other option is that we do that. Have I done that with this one? So with this one, both sides had paint on, so we've folded it in such a way that you can see both sides. This requires a lot more taping. It does require, things can fall out a bit more easily. So it just depends what you've got or what you want to do. But we'll start with just covering one side, and we'll see what happens. I just love this idea that I've got this stack of little books that we've made, and you can put them all together, these little journals. I think the other thing as well is that notebooks can cost quite a lot of money, you know, these days. If you go into the shops and you want a little notebook, it's going to cost money. This way, you're just using paper and you're making it yourself. You're creating the pages yourself. So what I'm going to do, essentially, is I'm just going to cover this paper with patterns. And I'm going to fill up as much space as I possibly can. And we don't have to be very good at this. We don't have to be artists. This is just about making patterns. You might find your pen's running out like me. That's okay. Don't worry too much. Now, I'm not going to take my time on this at all. I'm just going to be really quick with this, because the exciting part is making it into a book. So you guys can take as much time as you want, or if you want to use paper that is already sort of covered in patterns, this is why I think it's really good to use like kids' pictures that take, I mean, our table is just full. We've got these little kind of gaps in the table that you can put paper in, and they're just full to the brim with sort of craft, absolute craft madness, and it just it gets a bit silly. So I thought this is a nice way of consolidating. Nice way of consolidating all that mess. You still get to keep all the lovely artwork. You make something different out of it. Let's see. And so basically, the reason that I'm doing this for now is just to show you what happens when you cover a piece of paper with a load of patterns, right? So I want you to see the effect of when it's folded and what it kind of looks like in the end. But you guys can do whatever you like. You don't have to do patterns. I think this is quite fun with paint. I didn't want to get paints out today because I know that not everyone has paints, right? So I'm just showing you this so that we know that you don't have to use paints, you don't have to use any special materials, although you'll probably find if you are doing this with your kids' pictures, they often come home with loads of paintings, right? They'll often have things with sequins on. Now, I will say at this point, I haven't tried this with a piece of paper that has plaster stuck on it. I don't know if that would work. If anyone wants to try it, then good luck to them. It's not going to be me. I don't think plaster shapes on paper is going to be particularly good for today's session. Actually, I don't know if I've had any plaster pictures come home yet from my kids. We've definitely had a lot of sequins. We've had like potato prints. They would make great little books. And it's all about, if you've done any of my sessions before where we've done sort of abstract mark making and journaling, it's all about covering an area with colour and shapes and pattern. You're not having to be particularly skilled at all, but then by sort of pinpointing certain areas, you find the beauty in all of that sort of chaos. That's kind of what this is, the same sort of thing, and then we can add more to it. That's what I like about it, is that we can make something into something else without ruining that first thing that we've made. So this one we're going to use lots of bright colours, it would seem, and then we're just kind of just going crazy here, right? We're just filling up spaces, and it doesn't have to be intricate or neat. We're going to add more to it afterwards anyway, so it's fine. I'm going to go in with some pencils now. I'm going to start sort of maybe colouring in some gaps. This is quite a nice one that you can do with the children as well, actually, because they can do this really big messy bit that just involves sort of making shapes, colouring in, that sort of thing. And I'm just sort of, well, just having fun, really. Just having fun with making the marks. Let's go with some orange. Oh, I do love drawing stars. Let's do some stars. And you can apply, so I've done a few sessions of mark making with paint and like old store cards to sort of spread the paint around the paper. That technique would work really, really well for this as well. All I would say is just be conscious of the thickness of your paper. For this, I think it's much easier if the paper is thinner. I've done a lot of sessions on here that use card, and obviously card is a lot harder to fold. It's going to be harder to put into shape. So this one's quite nice because we're just going to use nice thin paper. Nice thin, cheap paper. Doesn't have to be fancy. The thinner the better, to be honest. I did try this with some newsprint actually, because I do a lot of screen printing, and the workshop where I print, they have a lot of newsprint, which is lovely. It's got a lovely feel to it, super, super thin. That's actually very hard to turn into a little book, believe it or not, because it's so, so thin. It just sort of wafts around. So we just want standard paper, really. Your normal sort of printing paper that you get for just printing documents, that sort of thing. All I would say is that you want nice straight edges for this, because we're going to do folding and cutting. So you could use magazine cutouts if you wanted to, but you would need to sort of cut it down to make sure it's trimmed nicely. We don't want any sort of raw edges. I think you'd then be struggling, I reckon. And I'm basing this on A3 and A4, so I don't know if it would work on other sizes. Presumably it would. I think it probably would. I'm just not very good at maths, so you'd maybe have to do the mathematic bit yourself. Okay, so I think that's fine. I don't think we need to do any more to this. So this is our A3 sheet done. I'm going to do the fun bit now. So there's two different ways of doing this. A3 is different to A4. The way that we fold the A3 and the way that we fold the A4 is basically the same, but it's the way that we cut it and fold it that's different. So you're going to get a different book with an A3 than you are to an A4. So pay attention. Pay attention, everyone. Okay, so now we're going to do some folding and some cutting. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get our A3. Now I'm going to lift my camera up ever so slightly so we can see more of the paper, because I don't want to get the dimensions wrong. That's better. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to fold our A3 length, sort of is it lengthways? Long edge in half, like this. And you want to make it as nice and neat as you can. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Yes, so that's our first fold. Then we can go in again. So we're sort of, it's just halves. There's no sort of real fanciness in this. We are just folding it into sections. This isn't origami. It's not like we're doing any weird angles or anything. We just need to make sure that we get the right amount of folds, that's all. So really easy. So you should have 4 long lines along. And now we can turn it to 90 degrees and fold it in half again. And as you can imagine, we're just going to fold it in half and then fold it in half again. Really, really simple. So this bit is not the difficult bit to remember. We just need to get a sort of the right amount of sort of rectangles, and they all need to be nice and neat, folded exactly. Okay, so that's one. And then the last one. So you'll see now that we've got 4 rectangles along here. And we're going to do the same along here. And I'm scoring these folds with my nails so that they're nice and neat. Okay, so now you should be able to see that you've got, how many have we got? 4, 8, 12, 16 rectangles. And that's it. That's the folding done. So that's that bit done. What we do now is we need to make sure that we've got it horizontal. Landscape. Yeah, landscape. Make sure it's landscape, because the cutting is the hard bit. So it's not that hard, actually. It's really, really easy. It's the hardest bit of the session, I would say, and it's not that hard. So we've got our 16 rectangles. All you need to remember is that we do 2 cuts on each edge and 1 cut in the middle. So we're going to cut from here to here. So you're going from the bottom to the last square. And you're going to do that here as well. And then we're going to do it the other way in the middle. I'll show you now, it'll make more sense. So we're going to cut really neatly. Up to that top edge like that. Yeah. And then we're going to do the same on this end as well. Exactly the same. All the way up. So you're just leaving 1 of those rectangles free. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. You're cutting 3 rectangles up on both ends. And then the easiest way to do this is to turn it around 180 degrees. And then we're going to do exactly the same in the middle, going up to here. Now I'm making this look harder than it is, because I'm cutting with my right hand and my camera's here and I'm going to keep knocking it. So I know I look like I'm cutting really oddly. I'm just trying not to knock my camera, which I'm inevitably doing anyway. So you've now got 3 cuts. So each of your sort of lines running vertically are all going to have cuts in them. 2 of them are going to be on one side and 1 of them in the middle is on the other. And that's it. That's all you need to do. So if I just sort of hold that there so you can kind of see the cutting, you can see what's happened. That's it. Now, hopefully at this point, you can kind of imagine what's going to happen, right? So this enables us to fold it into one small piece. And that's the really fun bit. Now, there's a few different ways of doing this. You can have an experiment with how you do it and how you decide to stick it down. But what I'm going to try and do is do it so that we can stick it down in such a way that we won't see any of this side, and everything else on this side you will be able to see. That's the idea. So we're just going to concertina it now, like so. In and out, in and out. How exciting. I love this bit. This is my favourite bit. And we just fold it all the way around. And that is basically it. We've done it. Goodbye. Don't really. So now you will see we've folded it all up and you've got all these beautiful pages of gorgeous mark making. How exciting is that? Now you'll notice that I'm struggling with a couple of these pages here. That's because some of them will need cutting again, but that is really, really obvious. Once you've stuck it all down, it makes total sense which bits you need to cut. So don't worry about that too much. I will show you this in a second. The thing I want to show you now is the bit that you need to stick. So there's a few options. If you stick down this side where you can see all these colours and you can see the folds, then you can go ahead with this bit and cut all the bits that are folded so that you have loads and loads of pages. You will also include the back side of the paper. So if you've got a double-sided piece of artwork, then that would work for that. The only difficulty with that is you've got to do a lot more sticking because the pages then become free from themselves. So what I'm going to do is show you the other way, which is where we're just doing a one-sided one. And what I would say is if you do want to explore the double-sided one is just have a play. So have a practice, maybe just get one piece of A3, scribble on both sides, do the cutting and folding and do the sticking and see where you get. That way you won't sort of ruin any beautiful art or kids art that you were going to chop up. The easiest option is what I'm going to show you, which is where we're going to stick down this blank bit. You'll be able to tell because it's obviously sort of white and hasn't got much going on. The other side has loads of colour on it. So we're not going to stick down the coloured side, we're going to stick down this side. And it's still going to be like, it's not going to be completely bound, right? We're not binding journals here. It's going to still be fragile in that sense. So just be aware that, like, you know, my little girl's getting annoyed because one of her pages kept falling out and I had to stick it down. So you might have to do some extra sticking. But for the purposes of just folding one piece of paper, I still think it's pretty exciting. So what you can do at this point, I've got myself some masking tape, but it's this sort of brown masking tape. This sort of masking tape is the best, I think. It's really sticky. It has a nice feel to it. So it's kind of parcel tape that is papery. So it's not shiny parcel tape. But normal white masking tape will also work. Sellotape would work if you don't have access to this. Any tape at all will work. You could go to town and use some like really thick duct tape and really make a sort of statement with it if you wanted. You just need tape, any tape you like. If you have like fancy washi tape, that will also work. And how much you stick is completely up to you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just rip a piece off. And essentially what you need to make sure is that it doesn't go further up either side. You will, if you do, that's fine. You can just chop it off. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a very small edge along here because I need to make sure that there's enough tape to cover the spine of our book. And now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to press too hard because I want to try and make sure that this tape sticks to all of those bits, because the problem you're going to have is if they come unstuck, it gets a bit wobbly. That might happen anyway. And we're going to put some more tape down anyway, so it's not too much of a problem. But what I'm going to try and do is just kind of have it slightly, I'm not going to press really hard, I'm going to leave it open slightly so that this tape has a chance to sort of stick to all those bits. And the great thing about masking tape is you've got a bit of time to sort of pull it up and have another go, put it all into place. And you can decide, you can kind of feel as you're pressing down and try and get as many of the pages as you can. And I really like this brown. The great thing about masking tape is you can sort of colour over the top of it as well. So if you don't like the look of it, you could draw over the top. Whereas sellotape's a bit more difficult because it's shiny. And then press back down on this side. And then essentially you've got your book. So once you've done that, you're good to go. And you can decide which is going to be the front and which is going to be the back. I think this one is going to be the front. I like the look of that one. How cool does that look? So you're pretty much done. The only thing you've got to do is these bits here where they're still joined, you might want to think about cutting those bits. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can leave it exactly like this. And you've still got yourself a sort of, 4-5 page book, which looks gorgeous, right? If you do cut these bits, which I am going to do, you might want to do some extra sticking in these bits here just to keep them secured. So I'll show you that now. So I'm very, very carefully, in fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to use my little tiny scissors, to make them nice and neat. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully cut along these binded bits here, these folded bits, sorry, so that they open up and you get an extra page. But you will see here that then you have the edge of the paper, which if it isn't stuck down properly could come apart. So it's these bits that you might want to reinforce with a little bit of tape. Now, if you don't like the look of the tape, you don't need to. I quite like the tape. I think it adds to it. I think it makes it look even more handmade, which is why I love it. And I'm just going to cut that edge off there because we don't want any tape flapping about. And also the other thing is that the idea is that we might add to this, we might add pictures to this. So we can cover that anyway. We go through, that one's fine. And then we've got another one here where it's still joint. So I'm going to turn that over because this one's on the other side. And we're going to very carefully chop that bit. I've got a bit of tape stuck on my tiny scissors, making it hard to cut. Lovely. So there, another page has been revealed, but it's got those extra bits there sticking out. So I'm going to take those bits down just for extra kind of security on those bits there. And then we should have one more that we need to cut just here. Here we go. I'm going to chop that one. Lovely. And so then that's just one more that we need to stick down. And there we have our completely beautiful bound book. So now we've opened up those ones that were joined. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pages. How great is that? An 8-page book made from one A3 piece of paper. Now, if you've done this with one of your kids' artworks, then you could leave it be, right? You could leave it just like this, and this is a really nice way of looking back through sort of those mad paintings that they do at nursery. Or if you want them to add more to it, you could, or if it's something you've done, you could add more to it. So at this point, we can consider adding to our notebook and make it into something. I'm not going to spend too much time on this myself because I want to show you how to do an A4 piece. But I will do something. I mean, we might as well. I'm just going to see if I've got a nice thick pen. Here we go. I've got a marker pen here. Which side shall we use? Let's use the thinner side. And we could go in. Let's zoom in ever so slightly. We could go in. And I'm going to call this exactly the same as I called my other one. I call it Rosie's tiny art book, I think we'll call it. And you could do anything with this. This would make a really nice gift, I feel. You know, like if you wanted to add, so one of the things I'm going to show you, and one of the books I've done, is that you can sort of stick things in there. So if I just write on this very quickly. I was going to write tiny, wasn't I? But I've just written art. I tell you what I'll do. Look, let's do this. So I've written Rosie's art book. And then, just in case anyone hadn't noticed, we'll write in brackets tiny. And then there you go. Lovely jubbly. Let's put a little star in that corner there. And we can just think about how we might want to fill this space now. So with the one, where have they gone? Oh, they're over here. So the one I did before, this one, I'm going to show you this one. So with this one, I went in and I did extra bits. This is something quite exciting that I'm not going to tell you about because I think I'm going to do this in the next session. So this is another way to photo transfer from magazine cutouts. And I have added that into this book just as a little teaser because that's going to be something I'm going to do in the future. But you can see I've just done little quotes. I've stuck some things in there. I've done a bit of collage. I've done a bit of doodling just to add to it. I've just stuck bits in it, magazine cutouts, pictures, that sort of thing. So that's the sort of thing you could think about doing. Very exciting. So you might do that with yours. You might do anything. You could stick pictures in it as well. That's the other thing. This would be a really lovely way to make something for someone as a gift. If you have access to a printer, you could do print out photos of your friends and family and then stick them in. And that would be a really nice way to have a tiny little photo book, wouldn't it? I think that'd look great. So yeah, possibilities are endless there. So that's how you do an A3 one. As I mentioned, if you want to do a double-sided one, the folding and the cutting is exactly the same. It's just where you stick down, where you do your binding might be the opposite side. You have to do a bit more cutting and probably a bit more sticking. But you can have an experiment with it. It's super easy. As long as you stick, the only rules here are the folding and the cutting. The folding into the 16 rectangles and then the cutting both sides, one side, and then the middle side, the other side. Wow, I said sides too many times then. I hope that made sense. So that's how you do A3. Now we're going to move on to A4. Let's have a look. So again, there's a couple of ways of doing this. So I've got myself one of these sheets that I showed you before, and this is a double-sided one. But I'm going to show you very quickly on here. I think it will be easier for me to show you the folding. And there's a few different ways you can do this. So let's think, what's the best way of doing this? So this one here that I've made, which I did digitally, okay, so I did this on my fancy iPad thing. But I've done this in such a way that means, again, we only see one side of the paper. And then I've stuck down some of the back sheets so that it becomes one thing that you can't pull apart. It's just one single thing. So I'll show you how to do that. But we can explore doing both sides. I'm going to show you the folding and the cutting first, and then we'll look at how we might put it together. And there's loads of different ways of doing this. So if you Google, I don't know. So the way that I found this was from what we call zines. So zines, so like magazines, so handmade zines. If you type zine folding one sheet, that sort of thing, you're going to get loads of different options here. This was the first one that I saw that looked like something my brain could comprehend, fold and cut without being worried too much, because I'm not very good at maths. So this is one of the easier ways, but there's tons of ways of doing it. So I'll show you how to fold and cut it first, and then we'll think about, well, maybe fold and cut this colourful one, and then we'll think about how we might fill these out. But this is the best bit, really. The best bit is making it into something. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to fold horizontally up through the middle. Make sure it's nice and neat. You want it to be nice and folded in half. But because it's a smaller piece of paper at this point, again, score it with your nails, make it really nice fold. And then we're going to fold into the middle again. So A4 is sort of half the size of A3. So you're getting half the amount of pages, I guess. And then we're going to do the same again, fold into the middle. So this time we're going to end up with 8 rectangles, 4 at the top, 4 at the bottom. So you should be able to see that. Lovely. So this one's really remember it is that you're doing a T-shaped cut. So if you've got, make sure you've got your piece of paper landscape and you're cutting a T out of the folds. 1, 2, 3. Really easy. Oh, we seem to have lost my other camera. Oh, it's back. I think my second camera is struggling today. Maybe it's the internet. Maybe it's the wind. It's always the weather, isn't it? It feels like it's not the best quality today. I'm not sure if it's my internet or not. Although, to be fair, this second camera is my phone, and it did an update this weekend, and I had so many problems with it. There's so many things that went wrong with it. You know, when technology asks you to do something to make it better, it says, oh, if you update this, it will make everything better, and then everything stops working. Very stressful. That's what happened with my phone last week. So apologies if that's the reason that the quality is a bit bad today. I had one of those moments where I had a bit of a tantrum with it, and I was like, I don't like this phone anymore. I want a new one. Okay, so we've got our A4 piece of paper here, and we've cut into a T shape, and I'll show you in front of my face as well. So you've just cut up and across, so you've got a lovely little T there, and that is all you need to do. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fold that into a book, and you're just doing the same thing again. So if I go back to this one, we're literally just going to concertina it. So you're going up and over. And then what you're left with is, again, another little book. Now there's a couple of different ways of doing this. So one is that you just leave it like this. So with a lot of kind of zine making kind of people, they will create one big thing that you can fold into one. So you might just want to make this like this, and then you're able to sort of open it up and it becomes one picture or something like that. Or alternatively, so this is what I've done with these ones, is I have, let me make sure I do this the right way round. Yes. So if I open it back out again. So when we concertina it, yeah, we're going to go across and around, and we're going to keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then you're left with this last one, which you would fold this way, but actually if you fold it all the way over, then what you've got is a little book, and if you stick some of these bits down, you've just got a lovely 4-page book. And that is what I have done with this one here. So I've stuck down the back bits, and then you're left with this smaller book. The best way to show you this is if I scribble on one side, and then we can see the results. So if I get myself one of these really big pens, and I'm just going to do loads of scribbles on one side. So again, this is one of those things that will work if you've only got a one-sided piece of paper, one-sided artwork. So you will now see, if I show you on this one, we've got one side has got patterns on it and the other side hasn't. So if we start to fold this, concertina it, as we did before, and then this last one, oh, hang on. So you need to make sure we concertina it the right way. So this will take a bit of exploring and experimenting. So if it doesn't work one way round, we fold in the opposite direction and see what happens. And hopefully this way round will make more sense. Yeah. So then we folded it together. You're left with your sort of flappy bit here. There's the ones with the marks on. And if we fold that round like that, you should have, sorry, this is quite glary. You should have one side with marks on it and the other side with marks on it. And then when you start to open it up, all of the pages that are sort of together all have marks on them. I'll show you on this one. So you've got, what we've done is, as we've concertinaed it, we've done our last fold, and then this one folds over itself like that. And then all of those bits that we've folded up have got pictures on. And all we'd need to do is go through, open it up, and just use a bit of Pritt stick on those sort of white bits and stick them down. And then you're left with one book, and each bit that you open has a picture. Now, again, this is something you can explore and you can experiment with. The main thing that you need to do, the only thing that you need to get right, is your folds and your cuts. So your folds, again, we've folded our A4 piece of paper into 8 rectangles, sorry, and then we've cut a T shape. We've gone up one and then across in the middle. And as long as you do that, as long as you fold it properly and cut it properly, none of this matters, because you can play with it and you can keep refolding it as many times as you want until you're happy with the way that it's been folded. So if you fold it this way and then this way, you might find it doesn't work. If you fold it this way, it does. It's just a bit of trial and error. It's the cutting bit that's the hardest bit. So that's that way. That's the way of sort of sticking it down, and you've got your 4-page. But if you've got a double-sided one, so the reason I didn't want to fold this for the first time around is because it's got loads of patterns on it, and I thought you might not be able to see the folds. So we'll try this again. And we'll just have a quick look as to what it looks like. So again, we're folding, having the piece of A4 landscape, we're folding in half down to the top, then we fold in half again the opposite way. I mean, it doesn't matter which way round you do this, as long as you've got 8 equal rectangles on your piece of A4, you're good to go. And as long as you cut your T shape properly, you'll be absolutely fine. It's really, yes, I was right in thinking that this would be hard to see the folds because there's so many patterns on it already. So we've got our, you can't really see because it's so patterned, isn't it? But I'm just gonna, I'll do the cut real quick. So we've got a cut in the middle upwards, and we're going to create our T shape. And as long as we've done that, then the paper is able to fold up completely into a lovely little book. Now we're going to see what happens here, because we've got 2 sides. We've got our sort of orange and green side, and we've got our purple side. So we can kind of decide which way we want it to sit, and also what we want to do with it. Again, this is a bit I want you to experiment with. So if you do a double-sided one, what are the implications once it's all put together? you can kind of see there's so much going on. You might not want to stick anything down so that you can see every single bit. And it might be that you don't do any sticking, you don't do any binding whatsoever, because actually the point is that it's this lovely small piece of paper that you can then open up into one big piece. So you could explore the idea that maybe every single rectangle on your green and orange bit has an image on it. So you could draw something on each bit. And then on this side, you could have one big piece of artwork that you open up. So this is, again, this is thinking about how people make zines. It's all about handmade sort of, you know, magazines and stuff like that, is that some people will do it in such a way that once you open it up, it's just one piece of art. It's just a really fun way of doing it. Looks gorgeous. So the last thing that I want to show you is just to think about how we might recreate this sort of thing, the tiny, tiny little book. So we've got I'm going to go back to this one that we did. So we opened it up and we've got our patterns on one side and it's blank on the other. So what you can do as well, if you want to create something that's quite obviously just simple pages, what I would recommend is we fold our piece of paper. In fact, let's get a brand new one and do it again. So the way that you would do this is you would get your piece of A4. We're going to do the folds again, but this time we're not going to cut it straight away. All we need to remember is to only use one side of the paper. Otherwise, the other bit might not be seen if we do decide to stick it down. Now, this might be a really nice thing to do with the kids if you want to create something like a colouring book, activity book. I sometimes do ones where I do funny little pictures and then put math stuff on there, like just adding up that she can fill in. So you've got your folds, so you've got your 8 rectangles, and then what you might want to do, because you folded it, you can see exactly how that's going to sit. So it's really easy to know where the image is going to sit. And then what you might consider doing at this point is doing whatever it is. So each rectangle might have something on it. So I'm going to do some really simple illustrations on there. So we've got a star, we'll do a heart, we'll do some patterns. And we're just going to fill each space, but not go over the fold, because these will be our pages. I'll write hello on this one. But you get the idea, right? You can kind of do whatever you want, you know. I'll do a funny face there. In fact, it could be quite fun to just do one that's got funny faces on it, right? I think that would be a good one. Maybe a flower. And obviously you can take your time on this. I'm just doing something really quick so you can see what happens. What else? What else do we want to do? Maybe just a wiggly line. And then last one, we'll do a nice leaf. So each rectangle now has an image on it. You've not gone over the fold because you know that that's the area you need to fill. And then we're going to cut our T shape again. And again, it'll be trial and error with the folding, just to make sure we get it right. We're going to go up one in the middle and then across either side. And then we just need to make sure we fold it correctly. So I'm going to try it this way. There's definitely a way to do it, and I always forget which side it is. Is it to the left? Is it to the right? Let's find out. So we folded it up. Yeah, perfect. And then this last one folds around like so. And then what you're left with is each page has its own illustration on it. Well, that one's upside down, so we'll perhaps have to turn it that way. So you'd have to think about, this is the bit that you need to experiment with, is where everything sits. Some bits are going to be upside down, some bits aren't. So when I did this one, this digital one, I made a note of which bits would be upside down and which bits would be the right way up. So what you can do is, if you do what I've just done now, and then you can number each one. So you can number your pages. So at this point, you can say, right, so this is my page, this is number 1. And then you can go, this is number 2, but it's upside down. So you could sort of make a note of it being upside down. And number 3 being upside down. And then number 4 and number 5 are the right way up. And then number 6 and number 7 are okay. And then number 8 is upside down. And so then what you've got is you've got a template as to where everything goes. And then when you open it out, you can do a whole new one again, but you can remember where, look, now we open it, it says 4, 5, 6, 7, 3 upside down, 2 upside down, 1 and 8 upside down. And so it just makes that sort of template much easier to work out. And then you can go ahead, fold another piece, and then make notes. So you can say, okay, so this one here can be the right way up, this one can be the right way up, and so on and so on and so on. And that is how you make loads and loads of tiny little books out of one sheet of paper. I hope all of that made sense. And I hope you guys all have a go at it and have some fun with our, I mean, how easy was this? I just scribbled on this with a load of like fluorescent marker pens. It looks so good. I'm so pleased with it. I'm going to spend some time adding to this, I think. I'm going to put some more stuff on it, embellish it, do some more pictures on the inside of it. Because I mean, it's just really pretty. You get all these gorgeous details that you can also add to. If you're interested in writing, this would be a really nice way to make yourself a little writing book that's got a few extra patterns in there. So I hope you'll have a go. So A3, you just need to remember you've got 16 rectangles. You're cutting either edge 3 rectangles, and then in the middle, the opposite side, 3 rectangles. And then for your A4 one, you just need to remember 8 rectangles and then a T-shaped cut. And then the rest is for you to have a go at, to have an experiment. Make yourself a tiny little book, make a tiny book with children's paintings, and have loads and loads of fun. And also, it takes up way less space. So much less space. I'm going to go and do that with all my kids' paintings now, and I'm going to hope they don't mind. Thank you all so much for coming. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll be back very soon. I think I'll be back in a couple of weeks with some more crafting. My name's been Rosie. My business is Rosie Ramona, and I hope you'll have a lovely weekend, bank holiday weekend. I hope the sun shines again for us. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.